Welcome to another garden tour. So it's all gray and windy, and now finally it's Monday and it's still gray, just not as windy. So I decided, let me pop outside and take a ramble around in the garden and show you what's going on. We're starting in a different place, a place we don't normally start in. We are in the land of potatoes, and look how big these things have gotten. They're all equally big now. The one at the end isn't huge by itself, so I'm very happy with them. I think it's a while now still until they'll be ready, but I'm looking forward to that. And back to the area where the basil is. The basil plants, as my mother said, would start growing and take over, so here they are taking over. I'm glad I didn't plant anything else to fill it out. And inside, I think you can still see the little sunflowers are still coming through very nicely. So this whole area is looking great. Down here we still have my tiny tomato seedlings, which are getting bigger all the time. I think what I'm going to do with the larger ones, I'm going to transplant them again into a set of bigger pots that I have. And the 3 smaller ones, I think I'm just going to throw them directly into the garden. Because as you know, I freed up a bit of space. So I think everything in there is going to just work out perfectly. Behind the potatoes, I have this gooseberry bush, which after our intervention against the winter moths, is finally getting tiny gooseberries. I tasted one and I think it's a little bit too early for them still because it was very sour, but we've got several, not a huge crop. Next to that gooseberry bush right there are the beans you saw me plant earlier in the week. If you want to see my little video about that experiment and what I'm doing with them, I'll leave a link right here for that. So these are in a different part of the garden than the other beans are planted. So the experiment is not exactly a one variable experiment, but this is where I had room for them. And it's definitely very sunny right here when it's actually sunny out. As you can see, not sunny at all. Very cloudy. But this hopefully will start growing, if not by the next tour, then the tour after that. All right, now back to the vegetable garden proper. We've got the zucchinis growing up a storm. So I'll just insert a little clip of when I thinned the herd, as it were. I left these 4 seedlings, and they are just growing really well, really strongly. They've grown so much in just a week. And the same thing with the pumpkins over here. If you recall, this is the area where we had those 2 little cantaloupe plants coming up, and they actually ended up dying. I have no luck with cantaloupes this year, but I think it's because these little bag areas that I made, they're not getting enough drainage through this plastic bit right here. So these ones get more sun, so they are still a little bit wet, but just a good amount of wet for a squash and a pumpkin. But the cantaloupe area was just way too wet, so we ended up sort of taking the plastic out from underneath that and just making this little mountain. And I've planted yet again more cantaloupes there. I went to the store and got a new variety. I believe it's called Summer Snack Hybrid, which is a little bit of a bigger cantaloupe than the Minnesota midget, but I'm going to try them in case it was the seeds. I did end up planting the Minnesota midgets again in a container over on the patio, which I don't think I showed you, but nothing has happened with them, so that's fine. Onward and upward to the pea area. I showed you last week there were a couple of pea pods coming out, but now there's like a million of them. Let me look through and see if I can find any. Maybe this one is ready to be picked. Let's just pick it. Maybe it's not quite ready. There's a little pea pod for you. I think it's probably a little too early. You can see through. Those peas aren't quite big enough, but by next week I'm sure I will be picking. Look at them all. There's so many of them. So hopefully next week we'll have a pea harvest to show you. Everything in the beets and the carrots are pretty much the same as they were last week. Hopefully little bulbs are growing underneath all of them. And you can see down there, right there, there's some sunflower. And there's a bee trying to attack me now. So I'm gonna move swiftly away. As for the eggplant, it seems we have a little plant growing there. And even on this one, the small one that is not doing as well, has 2 eggplants supposedly growing. Very exciting. The tomatoes are doing just about the same as they were last week. I did end up fertilizing them, and maybe that's what's brought about this tiny little fruit. Tiny fruit here, tiny fruit there, tiny fruit there. These are obviously the little grape tomatoes, or cherry tomatoes. So I'm very excited about this. The lettuce appears to be on its last legs here. So we'll probably be pulling the rest of it up relatively soon, and we'll be able to plant one of my tomatoes right there, and the other 2 hopefully over there. Then over here, we're back to the area where the beans were planted. Nothing's showing through yet, but I didn't expect anything to be showing through. And next to them, where the beans were previously planted, this little friend down here is still going very strong. And I have planted parsnips next to him. Hopefully they'll come up, although something looks like it's been digging in here. Oh, God. Animals, what are you gonna do with them? And we've got some peppers here, as I usually show you first. And they seem to be growing tiny little fruits. Look at that, tiny little fruit. And really, only one flower has been on my radar this week. It's this beautiful rose. And there's actually a full bush of beautiful roses here. That is the garden for this week. I'm gonna leave you with a shot of all my peas coming up and getting ready to go. And then the special surprise in the middle of the peas is this guy right here. What is that? Is that a sweet pea that made it in amongst the peas? I don't know. It's very interesting, very cool. So I hope you enjoyed this episode this week of wonderful things in the garden, and subscribe if you want to see more garden stuff from me, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye now.